Jai, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Okay. Make some adjustments here. Here we go. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Yeah. So this is the 7th chapter, Adi Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrta. The deliverance, Prakasananda Saraswati, and the Mayavadis. So I was lamenting a little bit that, actually quite a bit, that I finished reading the Ramayana. I was having such a good time, absorbed in hearing the pastimes of Sita Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman, Vibhishan, Ravana, who turned out to be an incarnation of Jai, one of the gatekeepers. Ravana and his brother Kumbhakarna took birth as demons, big demonic rakshasas, because Krishna wanted to fight with someone, and he likes to fight. Who's he going to fight with? He has to fight with demons, and they took birth as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. So it ended happily. Sita was recovered from Ravana, and they all went back to Vibhishan, who now was a surrendered devotee, pure devotee of Ram, even though he's the leader of the Rakshasas, was installed as the king of Lanka, and they wouldn't be giving problems anymore with Vibhishan as their king. He's a devotee of Krishna, so they wouldn't be disturbing everyone like they were when they were being ruled by Ravana. So Lanka became a different place, became purified. And Sita, Ram, Lakshman, they all returned to Ayodhya. Bharat was overjoyed to have his brother back after 14 years. And they all lived happily ever after. So I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do without being able to absorb in the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra? What am I going to do? So I don't know, what do I do? The pastime is through. I read the whole thing, and I mean, I could read it again, but maybe not right now. But what do I do? So I said, well, let me try reading a little something about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And yeah, Krishna's pastimes are unlimited. His incarnations are unlimited. And hearing about Ramachandra was just wonderful and absorbing and just wonderful. But now I can hear about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is another incarnation of Krishna with a different mission. I mean, it's similar. His purpose is always the same, to establish religious principles, annihilate the miscreants. And with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's doing that. especially defeating the Mayavad atheistic. He's not fighting with bows and arrows. He's because in this age, the demonic and the divine are all within one person. So in previous ages, like the age of Ramachandra, they were separate individuals, and so they were fighting. But in this age, it's within each individual has the demonic and the divine. So the Lord is giving his weapon, is fighting by purifying the living entities to take up this chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, which defeats the demonic and establishes the going in the higher direction rather than the direction of entanglement in the material energy. So he's actually incarnated in his holy name. And so being rooted out, all the demonic tendencies within each individual will be rooted out by this chanting. So in this chapter, Prabhupada has gone into great detail about the Mayavadis and the Mayavadi different speculative philosophies, and they're being defeated in this chapter specifically. Chapter 7, Ayodhya Lila. So, we're hearing about the personalities that appear when the Godhead appears. He never appears alone. Just like Ramachandra, he appeared with his expansions. Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughna, they were all Vishnu expansions. They appeared as his brothers. And Sita, his internal potency. So here also, the Lord appearing as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's appearing in 5 features. Chaitanya, Nityananda, and Advaita are Vishnu expansions. And Gadadhar is in the devotional energy. And also Srivas, the devotee. But they're all devotees. Even Lord Chaitanya is appearing as a devotee. So it's kind of a nesting, like it's all within the mood of Lord Chaitanya appearing as a devotee. So everyone else, his expansions, they also appear as devotees. And all his associates, they appear as devotees. Hare Krishna. So that's all being discussed. So text 1819. Yan Sabat Tana Prabhara Nityanand Vihar Yan Sabatana Prabhar Kirtana Prachar Yan Saba Lana Karena Prema Aspadana Yan Saba Lana Dana Kari Prema Dana. This is translated with commentaries, word for word, translations of each verse by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation: the internal devotees or potencies are all eternal associates in the pastimes of the Lord. Only with them does the Lord advent to propound the Sankirtan movement. Only with them does the Lord taste the mellow of conjugal love, and only with them does he distribute this love of God to people in general. So this is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, very, very old at the time. He could hardly even see or hear or even write, but miraculously he composed the entire Chaitanya Charitamrta, which we have now in 17 volumes. under the direction of Nityananda, Lord Nityananda. So that's Krishnadas Kaviraj speaking. Now Prabhupada's purport is distinguishing between pure devotees and internal or confidential devotees. Sri Rupa Goswami in his book Upadesh Amrita traces the following gradual process of development. So saying here there's a difference between pure devotees and internal or confidential devotees. Out of many thousands of karmis, one is better when he is situated in perfect Vedic knowledge. Out of many such learned scholars and philosophers, one who is actually liberated from material bondage is better. And out of many such persons who are actually liberated, one who is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is considered to be the best. Among the many such transcendental lovers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the gopis are the best. And among the gopis, Srimati Radhika is the best. Radhika is very dear to Lord Krishna, and similarly, her pawns, namely Shamakund and Radhakund, are also very much dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's from Upadeshamrita. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments in his Anabhasya that among the 5 tattvas, 2 are energies, Shakti Tattva, and the 3 others are energetic, Shaktiman Tattva, or Vishnu Tattva. Unalloyed and internal devotees are both engaged in favorable culture of Krishna consciousness, untinged by philosophical speculation or fruitive activities. They are all understood to be pure devotees, and those among them who simply engage in conjugal love are called Madhurya Bhaktas, or internal devotees. The potential loving services in parental love, fraternity, and servitude are included in conjugal love of God. In conclusion, therefore, every confidential devotee is a pure devotee of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enjoys his pastimes with his immediate expansion, Nityananda Prabhu. His pure devotees and his 3 Purusha incarnations, Karanadakshay Vishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and Kshirodakshay Vishnu, always accompany the Supreme Lord to propound the Sankirtan movement. So everything's there in Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, and everything's there in Chaitanya. Text 20 and 21. Se panchatattva mili prithvi asya purva prema dana dera mudra ugadiya panche mili lute prema karyaspadana yata yata piye trishna badhe anakshana. The characteristics of Krishna are understood to be a storehouse of transcendental love. Although that storehouse of love certainly came with Krishna when he was present, it was sealed. But when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came with his other associates of the Panchatattva, they broke the seal and plundered the storehouse to taste transcendental love of Krishna. The more they tasted it, the more their thirst for it grew. Prabhupada's commentary. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is called Mahavaranyavatar because, although he is Sri Krishna himself, he is even more favorably disposed to the poor fallen souls than Lord Krishna. When Lord Sri Krishna himself was personally present, he demanded everyone surrender unto him and promised he would give one all protection. But when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to this earth with his associates, he simply distributed transcendental love of God without discrimination. Sri Rupa Goswami, therefore, could understand that Lord Chaitanya was none other than Sri Krishna himself, for no one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead can distribute confidential love of the Supreme Person. 22. Puna punya piyal yahai mahamata nache kande hasigaya yaiche maramata. Sri Panchatattva themselves danced again and again, and thus made it easier to drink nectarine love of Godhead. They danced, cried, laughed, and chanted like madmen, and in this way they distributed love of Godhead. Prabhupada's comment: people generally cannot understand the actual meaning of chanting and dancing. Describing the Goswamis, Sri Srinivasacharya stated, Krishna Kirtana Ganartana Paro. Not only did Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates demonstrate this chanting and dancing, but the 6 Goswamis also followed in the next generation. The present Krishna consciousness movement follows the same principle, and therefore, simply by chanting and dancing, we have received good responses all over the world. It is to be understood, however, that this chanting and dancing do not belong to this material world. They are actually transcendental activities, for the more one engages in chanting and dancing, the more he can taste the nectar of transcendental love of Godhead. Text 23. Patra patra vichara nahi, nahi stana stana, ye yanha paya tanha, kari premadana. In distributing love of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates did not consider who was a fit candidate and who was not, nor where such distribution should not take place. They made no conditions. Wherever they got the opportunity, the members of the Panchatattva distributed love of Godhead. Prabhupada's commentary. There are some rascals who dare to speak against the mission of Lord Chaitanya by criticizing the Krishna consciousness movement for accepting Europeans and Americans as brahmanas and offering them sannyas. But here is an authoritative statement that in distributing love of Godhead, one should not consider whether the recipients are Europeans, Americans, Hindus, Muslims, etc. The Krishna consciousness movement should be spread wherever possible, and one should accept those who thus become Vaishnav as being greater than Brahmins, Hindus, or Indians. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu desired that his name be spread in each and every town and village on the surface of the globe. Therefore, when the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is spread all over the world, should those who embrace it not be accepted as Vaishnavas, Brahmins, and Sannyasis? These foolish arguments are sometimes raised by envious rascals, but Krishna-conscious devotees do not care about them. We strictly follow the principles set down by the Panchatattva. Lutiya Kalyadiya Bandara Ujada Ascharya Bandara Prema Satta Gunabadi. Although the members of the Panchatattva plundered the storehouse of love of Godhead and ate, distributed its contents, there was no scarcity, for this wonderful storehouse is so complete that as the love is distributed, the supply increases hundreds of times. Prabhupada's commentary. A pseudo-incarnation of Krishna once told his disciple that he had emptied himself by giving him all knowledge and was thus spiritually bankrupt. Such bluffers speak in this way to cheat the public. But actual spiritual consciousness is so perfect, the more it's distributed, the more it increases. Bankruptcy is a term which applies in the material world, but the storehouse of love of Godhead in the spiritual world can never be depleted. Krishna is providing for millions and trillions of living entities by supplying all their necessities. Even if all the innumerable living entities wanted to become Krishna conscious, there would be no scarcity of love of Godhead, nor would there be insufficiency in providing for their maintenance. Our Krishna consciousness movement was started single-handedly, and no one provided for our livelihood. But at present, we're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars all over the world. The movement is increasing more and more. Thus, there's no question of scarcity. Although jealous persons may be envious, if we stick to our principles and follow in the footsteps of the Panchatattva, this movement will go on unchecked by imitation swamis, sannyasis, religionists, philosophers, or scientists. And we can add to the list imitation spiritual masters and imitation acharyas. This movement will go on unchecked by imitations. Therefore, those who propagate the Krishna consciousness movement should not be afraid of such rascals and fools. Text 25. Ucha lila prema vanya chadike vidaya Sri Ridha balaka yuva sabara duvaya. The flood of love of Godhead swelled in all directions, and thus young men, old men, women, children were all immersed in that inundation. Prabhupada's purport. When the contents of the storehouse of love of Godhead is thus distributed, there's a powerful inundation which covers the entire land. In Srimad Sridham Mayapur, there is sometimes a great flood after the rainy season. This is an indication that from the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, the inundation of love of Godhead should be spread all over the world, for this will help everyone, including old men, young men, women, and children. The Krishna consciousness movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so powerful that it can inundate the entire world and interest all classes of men in the subject of love of Godhead. Text 26. Sajjana Durjana Pangujat Andagana Premavanya Yaduvaila Jagatir Jana. The Krishna consciousness movement will inundate the entire world and drown everyone, whether one be a gentleman, a rogue, or even lame, invalid, or blind. Now, this was being written 500 years ago as a very, very old Vaishnava saint, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, was composing this Chaitanya Charitamrta to establish that Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, and then to describe the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and to explain about the Godhead in 5 features. So this is Krishnadas Kaviraj saying this. The Krishna, 500 years ago, the Krishna consciousness movement will inundate the entire world and drown everyone, whether one be a gentleman, a rogue, or even lame, invalid, or blind. Prabhupada's commentary. Here again, it may be emphasized that although jealous rascals protest Europeans and Americans cannot be given a sacred thread or sannyas, there is no need even to consider whether one is a gentleman or a rogue, because this is a spiritual movement which is not concerned with the external body of skin and bones. Because it is being properly conducted under the guidance of the Panchatattva, strictly following regulative principles, It has nothing to do with external impediments. It doesn't have anything to do with race, creed, parental heritage, education even. Acting under the guidance of the spiritual master in line of succession from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Panchatattva. Text 27. Jagat duvila jivera haila bijanasa tahadeki pancha janira parama ulasa. When the 5 members of the Panchatattva saw the entire world drowned in love of Godhead, and the seed of material enjoyment in the living entities completely destroyed, they all became exceedingly happy. Prabhupada's commentary. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur writes in his Anubhasya that since the living entities all belong to the marginal potency of the Lord, each and every living entity has a natural tendency to become Krishna conscious, although at the same time the seed of material enjoyment is undoubtedly within him. The seed of material enjoyment, watered by the course of material nature, fructifies to become a tree of material entanglement, which endows the living entity with all kinds of material enjoyment. To enjoy such material facilities is to be afflicted with the 3 material miseries. However, when by nature's law there is a flood, the seeds within the earth become inactive. Similarly, as the inundation of love of Godhead spreads all over the world, the seeds of material enjoyment become impotent. Thus, the more the Krishna conscious movement spreads, the more the desire for material enjoyment decreases. The seed of material enjoyment automatically becomes impotent with the increase of the Krishna consciousness movement. Instead of being envious that Krishna consciousness is spreading all over the world by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, those who are jealous should be happy, as indicated here by the words parama ulasa. But because they are kanista adhikaris, or prakrita bhaktas, materialistic devotees who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge, they are envious instead of happy, and they try to find faults in Krishna consciousness. Yet, Srimad Prabodhananda Saraswati writes in his Chaitanya Charitamrta that when influenced by Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement, materialists become averse to talking about their wives and children. Supposedly learned scholars give up their tedious studies of Vedic literature. Yogis give up their impractical practices of mystic yoga. Aesthetics give up their austere activities of penance and austerity. And sannyasis give up their study of Sankhya philosophy. That's the atheist Shankaracharya, Sankhya philosophy. Thus, they are all attracted by the bhakti yoga process of Lord Chaitanya and cannot relish a mellow taste superior to that of Krishna consciousness. Hmm. 28. Yata yata prema vrishti kari pancha jane tata badhe jala vyape tri bhuvane. The more the 5 members of the Panchatattva cause the rains of love of Godhead to fall, the more the inundation increases and spreads all over the world. Prabhupada's purport. The Krishna consciousness movement is not stereotyped or stagnant. It will spread all over the world, in spite of all objections by fools and rascals that European and American leches cannot be accepted as Brahmins or sannyasis. Here it is indicated that this process will spread and inundate the entire world with Krishna consciousness. 29 and 30. Mayavadi karma nishta kutakikagana nindaka pashandi yatta paduya adama se saba mahadaksha danapailala se vanya ta sabare chunite narila. So you can see why publishing this 7th chapter as a book all in and of itself was very significant for Prabhupada. Evidently he was under some very heavy criticism for his preaching movement. And as he's saying here in the purports, but he's fully supported by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, and all the Goswamis, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And he attributes the opposition that those that are opposing the preaching going on all over the world, engaging all sorts of people in chanting and dancing, taking prasadam, hearing about Krishna, and even taking up services of management and teaching positions and sannyas under this authoritative go-ahead from the parampara. And he attributes their opposition in that they're not actually spiritually advanced. He calls such people kanista adhikari, or prakrita bhaktas, which means they have some materialistic idea about what devotional service is. And in general, they may be attached to externals, not actually grasping or experiencing in themselves any kind of actual spiritual awakening. So it's coming from here. And materialistic devotee also means material desires for profit, adoration, distinction, fame, position, power. So that's all part of it. So this was very important for Prabhupada to publish this 7th chapter as a book all by itself, because in 1973, when this was published, the Chaitanya Charitamrta wouldn't be in its fullness published and printed until 1974. So I'm guessing here, Prabhupada may have been working on the Adi Lila at this time, and this particular chapter he was translating in preparation for the entire Chaitanya Charitamrta, and he saw the opportunity to make this into its own little book while he was working on translating the 17 volumes. Hare Krishna. Text 29 and 30. Oh, we did that. Okay. Now, the translation. The impersonalists, fruit of workers, this is Krishnadas Kaviraj saying. The impersonalists, fruit of workers, false logicians, blasphemers, non-devotees, and lowest among the student community are very expert in avoiding the Krishna consciousness movement. And therefore the inundation of Krishna consciousness cannot touch them. Prabhupada's purport. Like Mayavadis in the past, at the time of Krishnadas Kaviraj and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, such as Prakasananda Saraswati of Benares, modern impersonalists are not interested in Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement. They do not know the value of this material world. They consider it false and cannot understand how the Krishna consciousness movement can utilize it. That reminds me of Maharaj Parikshit's question to Sukadeva Goswami, that how can a material mind and material words be engaged in revealing or connecting with the transcendent reality, which is spiritual. So here the Mayavadis, they consider the world false. They do not know the value of the material world. They consider it false and cannot understand how the Krishna consciousness movement can utilize it. They are so absorbed in impersonal thought that they take it for granted that all spiritual variety is material. So in other words, all variety, material variety, which they can see, and spiritual variety also, it's all just material. Because they do not know anything beyond their misconception of Brahmajyoti, the Lord's effulgence, they cannot understand that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is spiritual and therefore beyond the conception of material illusion. Whenever Krishna incarnates personally or as a devotee, these Mayavadi philosophers accept him as an ordinary human being. This is condemned in Bhagavad Gita. Abhajananti mam buddha manusim tanamasritam param bhavam jananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in human form. They do not know my transcendental nature, my supreme dominion over all that be. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. There are also other unscrupulous persons who exploit the Lord's appearance by posing as incarnations to cheat the innocent public. An incarnation of God should pass the tests of the statements of the Shastras and also perform uncommon activities. One should not accept a rascal as an incarnation of God, but should test his ability to act as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For example, Krishna taught Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna also accepted him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But, for our understanding, Arjuna requested the Lord to manifest his universal form, thus testing whether he was actually the Supreme Lord. Similarly, one must test a so-called incarnation of Godhead according to the standard criteria. To avoid being misled by an exhibition of mystic powers, it is best to examine a so-called incarnation of God in the light of the statements of Shastras. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described in the Shastras as an incarnation of Krishna. Therefore, if one wants to imitate Lord Chaitanya, who claimed to be an incarnation, he must also show evidence from the Shastras about his appearance to substantiate his claim. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right. So I was lamenting not being able to read about Lord Ramachandra every day now, since I finished the Ramayana. But how nice this is to hear about the incarnation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? Well, anyway, Hare Krishna.